Mon Amour
is a video game on the Nintendo Switch where you play as an old guy who kisses men, women, animals, creatures of the deep, angels, demons, and Granballoon, who are all referred to as girls, even King Poseidon, to form a spinning harem love train. It features 66 total characters, one of whom is a lady named Hottie, who burns the midnight oil just to serve you. And another is a crustacean named Krabby, who tells you she'll chop that off if you cheat on her. Somehow, this game is wholesome. No, I'm serious. This suave gentleman you'll be controlling is called the Baron, and he's on a mission to save his bride, Princess Flan, along with all of her royal subjects from the love-starved witches, whose curses can only be broken by the power of a kiss. Every run consists of 5 worlds with 50 micro-levels you must beat in succession for a high score, each with its own girl to save. It's super easy to die, and the game's advertisements boast about how 90% of playtesters croaked on their first play. I was one of them. But before I talk about the ins and outs of this self-described flappy one-button Insta-Death kissing action game, I want to first dive into the details of how it all came to be. Around this time last year, I reviewed the first ever English release of Moon Remix RPG by the same team behind
Mon Amour
Onion Games. This version of Moon is a translated port of their cult classic PlayStation 1 title that had a concept which helped directly inspire Toby Fox's Undertale. Moon has the player exploring a world inside of a fake video game, but if that isn't meta enough for you, there's a fully playable arcade game inside of the game, weirdly called XINGISKAN. Successfully completing each of the 5 levels in this bonus game is one of Moon's most difficult feats, so it's safe to say that conquering it takes about as long as it took Genghis Khan to conquer Eurasia, probably. This subgame is very simple with just one button to press, and requires you to keep a rocket on a safe trajectory to the goal on the other side of the screen. The rocket moves at a perpetual speed in the direction of its destination, but it'll quickly plummet without the player's input. Pressing the action button makes the rocket rise, though holding it down too much will launch the thing beyond the top of the screen for an instant game over. So the game is essentially a balancing act of pressing and releasing the button with perfect timing to maintain a stable course. XINGISKAN is different from
Mon Amour
in that the sensitivity changes drastically with each level, which is one of the reasons why it's so difficult, but the basic concept is shared between them. Because the challenge is so notorious within Moon's fandom, it was an interesting and risky choice for Onion Games to take this punishing side game from 1997 and transform it into a full-fledged release of its own for 2021. XINGISKAN came first, but I would be remiss not to mention a similar but much more infamous title, the viral, short-lived mobile release Flappy Bird, whose legacy lives on in knockoff ticket redemption games. The premise of Flappy Bird was to tap the screen repeatedly, keeping your Flappy Bird airborne to pass through a gauntlet of suspiciously familiar-looking pipes. It was arduous but addicting by design, a truth present in all 3 of these games. And as you may have already noticed, even Onion Games themselves have described
Mon Amour
as being flappy, which does its job at giving the general audience an idea of what the gameplay is like. But to write this off as a Flappy Bird clone is ludicrous. There's much more here to fall in love with, and while the game is short, it took me about 5 hours to complete it 100%, it is densely packed, with a signature hidden depth, reminiscent of the developers' 2 other high score chasers, Million Onion Hotel and Blackbird. The former is the most intense, zany game of whack-a-mole you'll ever play, while the latter is a shoot-'em-up with a completely opposite aesthetic to the dreamy, soft glow pastel-colored
Mon Amour
as a beautifully dark and melancholic experience. The idea of kissing being a key component to advancing the plot follows the footsteps of Onion Games' other legacy titles Chulip and Dandy Dungeon, RPGs also directed by Yoshiro Kimura, where you level up after locking lips. Every super quick stage of
Mon Amour
ends when you successfully canoodle the witches' captives, which adds them to your troupe. Once joined, they'll only opt out of the polyamorous procession if the Baron collides with an on-screen hazard. In other words, they act as extra hits. Besides the boss levels of every world, which feature creative set pieces based around a theme that work as attacks the player must avoid, your main obstacles throughout the game are these D buildings that gradually close in from the top and bottom of the screen with every level that passes. According to the game's official website, these creeping buildings are embodiments of the city's oppression. They're fatal to touch and can only be fought back by manifestations of love and passion, i.e. hearts and fruit. You heard that right. I wondered, why fruits too? But then I realized that bananas, cherries, peaches, mangoes, and melons are all aphrodisiacs. It's perfect. Small hearts materialize with each kiss, and can be strategically combined to create screen-filling hearts, worth a larger sum of points, that greatly repel D buildings upon exploding. From just this footage, it may seem like the arrow that dictates which direction the hearts will be shot in after a kiss is random. However, it's entirely dependent on the Baron's flight path, so it is actually controlled by the player, requiring a great deal of finesse to perfectly align the arrow with your target. But the payoff is so satisfying, it makes for a brilliant gameplay loop. Imperative too are the aforementioned fruits, that grant energy to drive back hurdles in their immediate vicinity, with the invaluable melons providing a temporary barrier for the Baron that forces away all obstructions so you can keep the concubine conga line intact for a better score. Whether you hoard these assists for when things get really hectic, or collect them all immediately to keep the screen as clear as possible at all times is up to you. Because besides certain special levels, most everything, including a line tracing your unique path to the end of a course, carries over to future stages. Your playstyle imprints are ever present, which is especially true if you're connected to the internet, as other active players can see how and where you've perished via death notes, distributed to everyone as pop-ups on the main menu. This system, in tandem with the leaderboard, makes for plenty of replayability. So long as a top spot is up for grabs, I'll have a reason to keep coming back, even after having collected all of the characters, which is very fun in and of itself. Like I said before, in any given run, there will always be 50 stages to clear, but there are more to see than that in total, as many of the boss levels interchange randomly. That means you'll have to play through the game multiple times to encounter each one. But if you're a completionist whose main motivation is to rescue all of them, which I do recommend solely for their ridiculous quotes, there is an anti-frustration feature allowing you to retry any stage with a zeroed out score if you fail the level or sacrifice a new recruit on the way back to the castle. Keep in mind you can't skip ahead like this if you want a chance at topping that leaderboard, but it is a great option for unlocking characters and cutscenes that play as you make progress towards the princess. Speaking of these cutscenes, they're basically gag sketches I was at first a little put off by until I stopped putting the Baron's morality into question and realized he's actively running away from his pursuers. He's only interested in Princess Flan. As for why the princess in particular reciprocates his love, I don't have a good answer. As the trailer explains it, love is diversity. Much like everyone crushing on Mario in Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, it must be the mustache. Whatever the reason, I recommend
Mon Amour
as a polished, compact little game that may at first glance appear shallow, until you look down and realize you're actually in some fairly deep water. Constantly retrying from the very beginning sounds unfun, but the prospect that any do-over attempt can be a perfect run becomes enticing as you learn and improve at the mechanics that'll help you rack up points. I'd say the game is valued well at $8.99, but the cool thing is, if you want a similar Onion Games experience but prefer to spend less, you can easily pick up Million Onion Hotel on your phone for half the price, and that's when it's not on sale. Alternatively, if you want a kindred game with a weightier story that'll last you longer, and you're willing to pay a bit more, then Blackbird is the way to go. Nevertheless, if you're a fan of offbeat, innovative titles, you really can't go wrong with anything published under the Onion Games name. This is starting to sound like a sales pitch, but please let me know if any of you try the game out for yourself because of this video. As a sort of lightning round before I wrap up today, here are 2 more things I love about Mon Amour I couldn't quite fit anywhere else into the review. Number 1. The music composed by Keiichi Sugiyama is infectious, consisting of improvised vocal jazz and scat singing, with vocals by Mie Tsunozaki of Puyo Puyo fame. Number 2. The Onion Games shared universe is real, because Yamada from Dandy Dungeon, the legend of brave Yamada, apparently had a daughter with Maria, and she's a character in this game. That hilarious pixelated Japanese baby is all grown up. Thank you Onion Games for providing the key to make this review happen, and to my Patreon supporters who encourage me to continuously create content for everyone. Thanks as well to anyone who watched this all the way through to the end. I don't ask this very often, but if you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing so I can reach my channel goal of 10,000 before the end of this year. See you all for the next one.